Hello there. It's been about, I guess, 2 weeks or so since the Nicholas Sparks movie, Dear John, came out. And now that many of you who have been eager to see the movie have gotten a chance to take a look at it, I want to talk a little bit about some of the differences between the book, which I read, and the movie, which I saw on opening weekend. I had actually made a video about the book specifically quite some time ago, last year actually, and that's gotten quite a lot of views. A lot of people have commented on it. It's one of the most viewed videos on my channel, so thank you very much for being interested in that. I'm going to be getting into some very specific details about the plot, especially the end. So when I do, I will put up these little cards right here, spoiler warnings, so that you can keep yourself fresh if you need to. So the movie itself, pretty decent. A decent adaptation, mostly very true for the most part to the storyline. The characters were well cast. The main character is a soldier, John Tyree, an American who's stationed in Germany and comes home for 2 weeks leave. He's played by Channing Tatum, who was the lead in G.I. Joe, and he's pretty decent. He's not called upon to emote a lot. Basically, he has to look, stoic and tough, and occasionally rather sensitive. He does have a nice emotional scene with his dad late in the picture, which is good. So he does well. The other three principal characters are his father, of course, the girl that he falls in love with, Savannah, and her friend, whose name is Tim, by the way. They're played by Richard Jenkins, and Amanda Seyfried, of course, and Henry Thomas. And they're all terrific. Very well cast movie. And overall, it's pretty decent. Nothing really terribly adventurous as far as its style goes, but it's decently well done for sort of a mainstream romance type deal. And it is, like I said, mostly faithful to the book. However, there's some pretty significant divergences from the storyline in the novel. And I'm going to get into those right now, so spoiler, beware, spoiler, run, take cover, spoiler, spoiler. Okay, good. Now, those of you who don't mind having the surprise ruined, John Tyree, of course, comes home for 2 weeks leave from Germany to visit with his father and hang out and relax and surf until he goes back again. And during that time, he meets Savannah. And she's, like, of course, absolutely perfect. And she's beautiful. She's played by Amanda Seyfried, so yeah, she's pretty much perfect. And they fall madly in love with each other. And he says, well, I got to go to Germany, for a year, and it's going to be another year before we get to see each other again. She's like, well, okay, I'll hang in there if you can. We'll write each other letters and stuff. And they're like, okay, so we'll do that. So he comes back after a year, and they have another 2-week leave. Now, the first difference between the novel and the movie is that 9/11 takes place during this movie. However, 9/11 takes place after his second 2-week leave, and in the movie it takes place before. In the book it takes place after, yes. In the movie it takes place before. So what happens is, when he is on his second 2-week leave, in the book, he and Savannah plan to start their life together once he gets out of the service, which is like in 6 months. And when 9/11 happens, he and his buddies immediately re-enlist for another 2 years. And so he's going to be a soldier for another 2 years, and it's going to be another 2 years before they get to, have their lives together. Now, in the book, he doesn't consult with her at all about this. He just does it. And she doesn't complain about it openly, but she's not happy. And eventually, during that, I don't know, during those 2 years, before he finally gets out, she writes him a letter saying, I fall in love with someone else, we're getting married, sorry, take care of yourself. Now, in the movie, 9/11 takes place before his second 2-week leave, so he gets the opportunity to speak with her about it in person. He still goes ahead and re-enlists, but at least he lets her know that he's considering this. And so, although she still ends up basically leaving him and writing him the letter, which is a terribly appropriate title for this movie, it's not quite as bad. And that sort of, I don't know, it doesn't hurt his karma, I guess, quite as much. So that has sort of a ripple effect on the rest of the movie. Things turn out better for him in the rest of the movie than they do in the book. And if you've read the book, you know that basically their relationship doesn't work out. In the end, they are not together. And this is stated actually in the very first chapter. Now in the movie, they don't state how it turns out in the very beginning of the movie. You have to wait until the end to find out what happens with them. As it turns out, the exact opposite ending of the book happens in the movie. For those of you who have read the book, obviously, the situation is she ends up marrying her friend Tim, and is taking care of his son when Tim gets sick with cancer, and he needs experimental drugs in order to treat it and possibly cure himself. And John Tyree, after his father dies, he ends up selling his father's very valuable coin collection and makes an anonymous donation so that Tim can get the experimental drugs and possibly live longer. Now here's the big difference. In the book, John Tyree has this choice whereby he can wait for Tim to die and then he'll have Savannah again, or he can do the right thing, the noble thing, which is to do what he can to help Tim, but possibly live the rest of his life without Savannah, because if Tim lives, they're going to stay married and together, and he will have no Savannah, so he'll be unhappy. So what happens in the movie is, in the book, he obviously makes the right decision. He, sells the coin collection, donates the money, Tim gets his drugs, he lives, he and Savannah end up together, so John Tyree and Savannah are not together. But in the movie, things happen differently. Although he sells the coin collection, donates the money, and Tim gets his medication, Tim ends up dying anyway. And in the end, John and Savannah are together at the very end. They get together at last. So in the movie, John gets to have it both ways. He gets to feel good about doing the right thing, the noble thing, and helping Tim, but he ends up with Savannah anyway. He lucks out. And that is the principal difference between the novel and the book. There are other differences as well, but that's the principal one. And I like the conundrum that John Tyree had in the book. It was very, very kind of agonizing and painful. It really I like the book a lot. It really made you feel that struggle that he had. But in the movie, his actions are somewhat less selfish in the beginning, so his selfless actions at the end end up having a better outcome for him. He does the exact same thing with the exact opposite result. It's all smiles at the end, basically, for him. Of course, his father's dead, and Tim's dead, and everything like that, and they've gone through war and everything like that, but they're together, so it's not all bad for him. So that is how the movie is different from the book. And if I had to recommend one or the other, I'd say, the book is probably the better experience. Of course, now that I've told you everything that happens, you probably don't have to read it. The movie's okay. It's okay. The acting's good, obviously, but I would go with the book myself. It's a really emotional experience. So, thanks very much for watching again, and I appreciate you watching the original Dear John video. Hopefully you'll like this one too. Thanks very much, and take it easy.